All right, back for another edition of the Field of 68 Mid-Major Show. I'm Sean Paul, joined by Rocco Miller after a very entertaining first week of Feast Week. I consider Feast Week 2 weeks pretty much. So, first entertaining half part of Feast Week. So, how are you feeling after that, Rocco? A lot of travel for you.
Feeling good. Feeling good. It was good to be down at the Boardwalk Battle, first year of the event. Obviously a little ways out there in Daytona Beach, but really cool setup. Hotel is right by the arena. In fact, it's so close to the arena that the players each morning were just and the entire teams were walking from the lobby into the arena.
That's
That,
pretty
that's what's
cool.
going. Yeah, and that's what's going on now at the Sunshine Slam, which just started on Monday. And I can see why they play so much basketball there. Obviously, the CBI is there in March. You and I probably aren't paying attention as much to that, but
No,
it's
not
just a
really.
really
We got other stuff to worry about at that point.
we do, but it is just a really huge amount of space, kind of perfect to just throw a bunch of games there. So after seeing it firsthand, it was pretty cool to see how easy it is to get an event done there, and you're right on the beach as well. So really, no complaints. Had a great experience. UC San Diego, Sean, I think surprised a lot of people winning that tournament.
Mhm.
A good win over LaSalle and James Madison. Those were hard fought wins, and then just destroying a very
Mhm.
talented Toledo team in the finals. So UC San Diego, another team out of the Big West, making noise early. How was your weekend, Sean?
It was pretty good. I got to watch a lot of the Charleston Classic, a lot of the Myrtle Beach Invitational. Those obviously are going to be two of the focal points of what we're going to be talking about today. The Paradise Jam as well was a pretty good one from a mid-major perspective. Some good wins all around for our teams that we talk about here, but no
Yep.
team won more than the Drake Bulldogs. I mean, we got to start there. We got to start at the Charleston Classic and what Drake was able to do, being underdogs by multiple possessions into every single game. FAU and Vanderbilt were 4.5 point favorites over Drake, and Miami, who obviously doesn't seem very good now after going 0-3, were 9.5 point favorites against the Bulldogs. They were able to win 3 games. They were picked fifth in the preseason Missouri Valley Conference poll. They were terrific this week. Bennett Sturts, Cam Manyow, Mitch Mascari, Daniel Abreu, Isaiah Jackson, everybody played an equal part. Obviously, Bennett Sturts is a star. But what did you like about this Drake team this week?
I mean, how incredibly deliberate they were, Sean. We were talking about it a little bit before we started the show today. I mean, they basically controlled each and every game the same way in terms of how they wanted to dictate the pace, running all these different actions, freeing guys up. In the championship game, Sturts was just an incredible facilitator. At last check, he had 11 assists late in the game. He might have ended up with more, but
I think
like
he finished with 11.
yeah, he finished with 11. So, and Cam really came alive there. Cam's a guy I saw quite a bit at Wyoming in the Mountain West last year. I covered him in the Myrtle Beach tournament last year, which was around the same time of year. He's got a ton of talent, and he's only a sophomore. And with Ben McCollum's, long pedigree of getting the most out of his players, getting players to really play together. I don't want to put too big of expectations on his first year. Obviously, they're doing that to themselves by winning this tournament. But I just think the world of coaches that can pull that off, and I think the most recent example was Dusty May doing that a couple of years ago with Florida Atlantic, really
Mm,
just taking the entire schedule by storm. They went 34-3 that year.
yeah,
I'm not
pretty
trying to
insane.
say I'm not saying Drake can do that. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, but
hopefully,
when you do this, though, you put expectations on yourself, like you said.
right, right,
This is what the expectations are now going to be, for better or
right.
worse.
Right, and I just think they go through the rest of the non-conference, and they have a manageable slate. Even the Kansas State game, they might be even picked to win by the time they play that. Kansas State losing to Liberty yesterday.
Mm,
That game is being played in Kansas City, so it should be a really awesome environment. I think the Drake faithful will come in droves down there to support them. And then in the life in the valley, like a little early to look ahead, but Bradley looks great. Murray State's got a lot back. Missouri State is suddenly a hot topic after beating High Point,
great win.
and some other teams are going to emerge. I saw Illinois Chicago up close. They've got some really nice pieces. Still figuring out how to win, but in their one win over LaSalle, they were very dominant. So yeah, this is an Illinois State showing some flashes. They just beat
Yeah, yeah,
UAB.
beat UAB.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think this league is really interesting. I think Drake kind of has to be the favorite now, even though Bradley
Yep.
did exactly what they were supposed to do. They do have a loss, but Washington State is a really good team, so I'm not going to knock them too much for that. But when you look at it, I mean, this Drake team, I was concerned about how their athleticism would play against some of these teams in the Charleston Classic, but it really didn't matter. Like they aren't as athletic as Miami. They aren't as athletic as Vandy, even though Vandy's
Or
not
FAU.
super athletic, but they have enough athleticism, but they're just so smart. Every single pass is precise. Bennett Sturts is one of the elite passers in the country. Isaiah Jackson, to me, he's such a good connector for this team and such an elite defender. There was a point, I believe, in the Miami game or maybe the next game, the FAU game, he was wide open in the corner. Like nobody was within like 10 feet of him. He didn't shoot it, he passed it. I think they scored anyways. And then like two possessions later, he hits a three that was a little more contested. I'm just like, the fact that he was passing up the wide open three, which is probably a bad decision in hindsight, and then going and hitting another one a few minutes later, to me it goes to show a little bit how unselfish this team is, and they're going to do whatever it takes to win. They're going to play really hard defensively. They're going to play exactly the way Ben McCollum wants them to play, and they have a star in Bennett Sturts, which I think is really important when you're a mid-major team trying to make a name for yourself.
Yeah, team first mentality. That's it. That small example that you gave is a great example of the larger theme going on across the team. And I think once roles are carved out and
Mm,
aligned, you can really execute on it. The nice thing for Drake is four of these guys played together last year at Northwest Missouri State and know exactly what Ben wants out of them. They can bring the other guys along that are on the floor with them. Those four are very key players. So it's in November. It's a big advantage because so many of these other teams they're playing, including the three they just played, are transfer
mm,
heavy teams. Right?
yeah,
Florida Atlantic has John Jacobs and a brand new cast of characters for the most part, besides Trey Carroll. Vanderbilt's all completely new with Byington,
entirely new, pretty much. Yeah.
and we know about how Miami runs their program. So they're of course bringing in new guys as well. So Drake's got that edge right now. I think there'll be a second wave of tests for this group. One, whether it's that Kansas State game or maybe even when we get into the heart of league play. They have a nice opener at Valpo. I think they're okay in that one. That's coming in early December, so that's 2 weeks out. But when the heart of the league starts, they open with Belmont, UIC in the same back to back. Then they host Murray. Then they have Bradley. So those are their first four, basically around New Year's games. I think all
Mm.
four of those will learn a lot about how Drake handles that, game to game flow. And again, my point is all these other teams that are more transfer heavy. By the time we hit January, I think they're going to start hitting the kind of stride Drake's hitting now.
Mm.
And that's where things are going to get really interesting in the Valley.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much talent in this league, and I think in our preseason episode, I was like, yeah, I don't think this league's gonna be very good. You were really high on Drake, I was not, so I'll have to
Yeah.
give you credit there. I mean, that was a good call by you, but you look at the rest of this league, like Bradley's obviously good, Murray State, and we saw them beat Middle Tennessee, who made it to the Myrtle Beach Invitational Finals, so they
Mm-hmm.
are a really good team as well. You have UIC, like you said, Sasa Siani, Philip Scoball, that's a really good interior duo. Missouri State pulling off that big win. Southern Illinois looks solid. So this league is really good. But overall, what would it take for Drake to be able to get an at-large bid? Obviously, it won't be easy. It's a valley. But if they're able to beat Kansas State, which will probably be like a quad two game at that point, and we'll see how good they end up being. It might be a Miami
Right.
situation where just they're not that good. But if they're able to beat Kansas State, if they're able to enter league play unbeaten at 11-0, what would it take in league play for them to get in that large bid?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think they still have to be really dominant. We can go back last year. The easy examples, Indiana State, how awesome of a season they had, and they still got left at the
Still
altar.
hurts a little bit. Still hurts.
Yeah, yeah. So you look at Indiana State last year; they go 25-6 in the regular season. Then, I'm sorry, I'm looking at Drake last year. One sec.
They still made us
Indi-
watch that Virginia Colorado State game, and I don't think I can ever forgive them for that, to be honest with you.
that's true. I actually predicted that correctly, but unfortunately, sometimes my predictions don't always follow my appetite for watching games. So I feel your pain, Sean. But the thing about Indiana State last year, they go 26-5, actually 17-3 in the league, and then of course losing the finals to Drake, who had Coach DeVries and the guys and went to West Virginia. But in Indiana State's case, the thing that stood out was they go 11-2 in their non-conference, but they had big
Hmm.
chances with both Alabama and Michigan State. Fell short. No
Yep.
harm there. Those are great teams. They played them both on the road. Nobody expected them to win those. In their tournament, they dominated Pepperdine, Toledo, and Rice. So again, this lineup of three with Miami, FAU, and Vanderbilt for Drake is much more
A lot better.
impressive.
Hmm.
But the key here, this is the thing that I think is easy to lose sight of, is where Miami goes, where FAU goes, where Vanderbilt goes from here. And ideally, if
Yep.
you're Drake, you can beat Kansas State. Where they go from there has a lot to do. So much of it's out of their control. Now they just need their opponents to look good. I think out of all the ones they've played, I have the highest hopes for Vanderbilt.
Hmm.
But FAU could, they could also really take off later this year, and so there's some angles there. And I do think all four of those have what it takes to hopefully stay at top 100 at least, which would make those quad twos. And you stack your quad twos at a certain point. I would think if they can just do what Indiana State did in league, not easy to do. 17-3 is really hard
Hmm.
because you're playing everybody on the road, especially the good teams on the road. After Drake winning the league last year in the tournament, that's what. Unfortunately, I still think there's a razor thin margin for error. And if you're 17-3, lose includes like a home loss to Evansville or something like
Well, yeah,
totally
like what killed Indiana State was that loss to Illinois State. Like they were ranked
right
and then they
at
lost
home.
that immediately. Yeah.
Yep. And that was by 13 points, so it impacted all their numbers. So yeah, it's so early to start talking that, but it is fun because they just won a huge tournament and they've got so much momentum and so much potential. But yeah, that certainly lays the groundwork. The other good news is with Bradley winning their tournament, they only have one loss. Just a quick thought on them. Of course, they're picked to win the league coming in, and I'm sure they'll have great battles with Drake this year. They scheduled like they were supposed to be a league champions. They still have a neutral court game with Santa Clara. They host San Francisco. They're going to go to Southern Illinois for their early Missouri Valley. So we'll see how far Bradley can get into a good position themselves, because then they can eat off of each other when they play.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. And Bradley, like they are also so well coached, so well balanced. I mean, they don't have a star, but it's the Duke Dean, it's the Darius Hannah, it's the Christian Davis. All these guys playing different roles, and they're just so good at what they do. Brian Wardle's a consistent winner, but another really consistent winner at this level is Richie McKay at Liberty. I think it's time we should talk about the CUSA and give them some of their flowers a little bit because they had a great week overall. I mean, Louisiana Tech's been great all year. They're 4-0 as we're recording. They get Missouri or Southern Illinois later today as we're recording this. Liberty pulls off the big win over Kansas State. Sam Houston State still solid. Western Kentucky, they almost beat Grand Canyon a couple weeks ago. That would have been big. Middle Tennessee, they made it to the Myrtle Beach Invitational Finals. They had that
Yeah.
a couple impressive wins under their belt. Kennesaw State, though, they were picked to finish last in the preseason poll, and yet here they are beating a number 24 ranked Rutgers team at home. They are definitely the surprise of the conference so far, I would say, because Antoine Petway, one of the branches off the Nate Oates tree, he's been great so far as a coach here. I think he's going to only make this team better, and they have a lot of talent. I mean, their freshman duo of Jamil Miller, who was great in this game, had a double-double against Rutgers, and Adrian Woolley, a freshman guard who looks well skilled beyond his years. That duo really carried them, and that duo was better than Rutgers' freshman duo, which is pretty tough to say because Rutgers has a pair of top 5 picks on their hands.
Yeah, it's phenomenal to see just the supporting cast that's emerging at Kennesaw State. And Jamil Miller, I think he's from Spokane, Washington. So
Hmm. He is.
pretty great find. I had some West Coast friends reaching out. Why is this guy playing down in Atlanta in the Conference USA?
It's a
But
great question. Do you have an answer?
I'll get to the bottom of that because
Okay.
good segue there. I'll be covering not only covering Kennesaw State this coming week in Alberta, Canada for the Western Slam, but happy to also announce I'll be on the call on ESPN Plus. So if you're
Yeah, there we
bored
go.
Thanksgiving night and you don't want to watch football anymore, come on over to
No,
ESPN Plus. We have Kennesaw State opening the tournament against UC Irvine. That is
it's a good
just
one.
such an awesome tournament. And then second game will be Towson against Kent State, another great game. And throughout the 3 days, they'll all play each other. So it goes Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 7:30 Eastern, 9:30 Eastern, back to back each night, 2 games a day. All good. Nice little nice little dessert for you on the East Coast. But yeah, I think Simeon Cottle, like, just a
Stud.
tremendous talent. Didn't even have a great game against Rutgers. He
Mm,
wasn't that efficient. Turned it over 7 times. They actually turned it over 22 times because things got so weird at the end. They blew a big double-digit lead, held on to win by 2, but that supporting cast was so inspiring, and I think this team was clearly proven that they probably didn't belong to be picked so low.
yeah,
uh,
no.
and they beat a really awesome Presbyterian team that just won a tournament. They beat Abilene Christian, so it's not just this one example. And I think, yeah, I think the league in general. I'm with you, Sean. Like, this is extremely deep league. I think FIU is really the only school in the league so far that you can frown upon. But FIU just played 3 one-possession games at a competitive Gulf Coast tournament. So even they're not like absolutely horrible or anything. They're
Yeah.
gonna fight. They're gonna fight all year. I just had Jacksonville State down at the Boardwalk Battle, and I was very impressed in their opening day win over East Carolina. Then they fought Toledo tooth and nail, lost in the last couple minutes, but Jacksonville State's actually pretty deep. They're extremely huge and physical. They never foul, which was a big issue late in the Toledo game because they only had 3 team fouls with 20 seconds left, and they had to keep
Where not
hacking and
fouling
hacking.
hurts you. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not fouling hurts you, but they are extremely disciplined. If they stay healthy, they're going to be right in the mix. I mean, I just feel like this league's going to eat each other because there's something to like kind of everywhere. You mentioned Sam Houston; they're going to be in a sneaky tough tournament at Wilmington this week. That tournament is them and Appalachian State, obviously UNC Wilmington and Colgate. So 4 prestigiously solid mid-major teams. And then Liberty, by the time you watch this episode, you'll know if they beat or lost to McNeese. But a shout out to their poise as this segment started with beating Kansas State in the semifinal, a game that McNeese really wanted to play. They wanted to play the big boys. Liberty took care of them around early for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought like the way Colin Porter and Caden Matheny closed this game out was impressive on offense. Now they did survive a barrage of wildcat attempts at the end. I think they had 2 threes and a 2.
Yeah,
They
Doug
missed all of
McDaniel
them.
was so wide open. I honestly have
Yeah,
no clue how he missed that. They should have won that game just because he was so wide open. But I mean, and they had
right.
that putback right at the basket that just wasn't even close, and he was also wide open.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, you need a little bit of luck in these things, but the fact that Liberty's there with the Power Five tells you a lot. Win or lose, they're right there, and fortunate to get the win, get a chance at McNeese. We'll see how that plays out. But they did play in the Field of 68 Classic just the week before, so this
Hmm.
team's been playing in a lot of big games. Came off that overtime loss. We talked about it a little bit last week, and just destroyed Charleston on their floor by 21. So this Liberty team is extremely dangerous. That win at Seattle is going to look better by the end of the year too. That they got on the opening week. So already a great resume brewing for the Flames.
Yeah, the metrics definitely prefer Liberty as a favorite to win this league, but I'm still on the side of Louisiana Tech. Like, they're 90th in Ken Palm right now. I think there's a very real chance we're talking about like a top 75, top 65 team when it's all said and done, because I think the biggest thing about having a really, really good mid-major team, and we've seen it, is you're able to get guys that transfer down. Obviously, they had a big injury with Will Jeffries. He's done for the season, unfortunately, so that's a big knock for them. They're going to need some other guys to really step up at that 4 spot, probably like Devin Ree or someone like that. But their top 4 is Daniel Baccio, Sean Newman, who leads the nation in assists. I believe he still does. He's top 2. If he doesn't, it might be Ryan Nemhard now. But he's right up there for assists. And you have the 2 scoring guards with Amari Abram and Caden Cooper. Like, this team has size. They're athletic. They have some really good scorers. They have some good passers. They can defend. And they're just so much better offensively than they were last year. So to me, Louisiana Tech is still the favorite in the league. But I don't think any team in this league is going to go through conference play without like 4 or 5 losses. Like, I think, like you said, it's going to cannibalize each other to some extent, because if Kennesaw State's this good, if Jacksonville State's this good, playing at New Mexico State is never easy. UTEP is never going to be an easy game with the way they play. It's going to be such a wild league because there is so much talent in this league. And the sad part about it is almost no matter what is probably going to be a one bid league, but there's 3 or 4 or 5 teams in this league who could win a tournament game.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. And I think yeah, one last thought on Law Tech. If you go to Torvik's model and just take away any kind of prior bias before the season, just based on raw data, Louisiana Tech's the best mid-major team.
I
They're
I
coming
think
in.
I agree with that. So
Yeah,
me
they
me
have
and
the
Torvik in a lockstep there.
yeah, they're coming in at 22 in the country overall, and they're number 4 in overall offensive efficiency nationally, which is just insane. 124.3 in offensive efficiency. The defense is actually like the weaker part of the team right now at 114 overall, but yeah, I mean they've just been a buzzsaw in the games. Now the problem there is we're only looking at D1 data. They've only played 2 D1 games, 2 very impressive wins. So a lot we'll learn a lot this week because they luckily for the Bulldogs, or at least luckily for us as analysts, they're not playing Florida Tech, who's a non D1 team playing in the same
That
tournament.
is good. Yeah.
So some of these teams have to play Florida Tech, but they're going to get the Salukis today, Richmond tomorrow, and a pretty good EKU team on Wednesday. I still fully expect them to be able to run through the three, but you just never know in these events. You try different combinations as a staff, if there's injuries or anything like that. So let's see if they can pass this test, and they'll get their crack at Memphis in a week, which would be a real
Mm.
awesome game. Um, yep.
I okay, so I love the at large talk for mid majors. So let's say they beat Memphis, right? Let's say they beat Memphis. Let's say they go unscathed through this little 3 game stretch they have coming up. Then they go and beat Memphis. That'll be a quadrant one game. Uh, how many losses realistically could Louisiana Tech afford in league play? Do you think?
I think if you get the Memphis win, it opens up a whole new Pandora's box for La Tech because Memphis is off to a great start. They're undefeated. They're starting the Maui tournament here on Monday. And that's an opportunity for them to build themselves up. But as La Tech continues to go down this journey, if Memphis can continue to have success, that could be one where you have probably your best chance at net large out of any of these teams we discussed thus far. They also get Grand Canyon at home on a Monday, so that's a big opportunity to get the win.
Hmm.
And then the league play, like you brought up, that was very good that you brought that up because one of the other things is travel in this league. It's not like most leagues. This league goes from Las Cruces, New Mexico, all the way to Lynchburg, Virginia, and everywhere in between. So these are very tough road trips, and history tells us when you're traveling multiple time zones, when you're going to hard to get places, it's not like flying from a major city to a major city. You're flying and then you're taking a bus. You're flying and taking a bus. You're going to have some bad nights. So
Hmm.
I think La Tech, just from a forecasting standpoint, you should account for a few losses in the league, at least. And so that I think that will be the real challenge. But the way they're playing right now, like I said, sky's the limit. And if they win that Memphis game, I think everything changes in terms of their ability to get in that large.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm with you. That'll be interesting to see. Some more stuff I'm interested to see is the MTEs this week. So I'll kick it over to you. Which MTE are you most excited to dive into this week?
Yeah, well, I think I'm obviously excited about the Western
Yeah.
Slam is going to be great. I think there's a few like Northern Iowa. We're still trying to figure out. They get a crack at some teams outside of our jurisdiction, opening with North Texas on Thursday, and then they'll get either St. Bonaventure or Utah State on the day after. So two really good opportunities. If they can go 1-1, then we'll see what they can get. But yeah, and there's a couple others out there too with that same kind of opportunity. So we'll see what they can produce. What about you, Sean? Which one are you looking at?
I mean, that one to me is definitely quite a bit interesting because I mean, we need to see what Kennesaw State is after pulling off that big win. Was it just, their home, Rutgers is young, are they actually this good? I think Kennesaw State might actually be a real contender in CUSA, but one that I'm really interested in, of course, is going to be probably, there's a couple. I would say the Baja Mar one and the Gulf Coast one are pretty interesting to me. The Gulf Coast one, you have La Tech, you have EKU, like you said, you have Ball State, who's been very disappointing so far, you have SIU. Ball State, I mean, they weren't supposed to win the MAC or anything, but they lost at
Uh,
home to Detroit Mercy. and they brought back Peyton Sparks. They got him back from the portal. That was a big one. Jeremiah Hernandez, Juanse Gorosito. So they added a lot of pieces, but they have been mightily disappointing so far. And EKU, I mean, they competed against Clemson. That final spread ended up being like 13, but they really competed. It was within single digits for most of that second half. Then you have La Tech and SIU, who was competitive on opening night with Charleston. They've looked okay. They're a good defensive team. Their offense leaves a lot to be desired. But I think that tournament has a lot of teams that I'm intrigued by because La Tech's great. EKU, could they compete in the ASUN? I think that's a yes, even though Ken Palm didn't love them in the preseason. Ball State, what do they really have? And SIU, are they going to be able to figure out offensively, or is it going to have to be an ugly game every single night?
Yeah, good call on those. And there's so many of these events like this, right, coming up this week.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm also just excited to see like which great stories are going to emerge. Last week, for example, Presbyterian comes out of nowhere, goes to Stephen F. Austin, dominates everybody. And that's a program that's been down. They're in the top 200 now of Ken Palm for the first time in 6 years. So there's probably going to be more of those types of stories that emerge just out of the woodworks. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's really great to just highlight the success and how much work they're putting in to get out of the bottom of D1 and into a competitive level.
Mm-hmm.
We're also going to see a game like Furman against Seattle U in the middle of Vegas as part of that Duke Kansas event. I mean that's a great opportunity for both of them to play in T-Mobile Arena, right? And Seattle U coming off a win at UC San Diego, which now looks way better than we would have ever imagined a
Mm-hmm.
week ago.
Yeah.
Furman, of course, one of the top 10 teams on my rankings right now, off to the undefeated start. So I think that will just be a nice little counts as an MTE game because they're both going to go on and play Kansas and Duke later. But I think that's a fun mid-major matchup on a big stage.
Yeah, you talked about UC San Diego a little bit there. I want to ask you a little bit about them and that tournament overall that you were at in Daytona Beach. I was not
Yeah,
able to watch, unfortunately, but you were. It was a 80 to 45 win for UC San Diego in the title game there over Toledo. First off, how do you hold Toledo to 45 points? I think we can figure out how you score 1.18 points per possession against Toledo. They're not very good defensively. But
right.
how do you hold that offense to 45 points?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I was traveling back when the game happened, but I was tracking it as I was on my
Oh, so
way.
you didn't see it either. Oh, okay.
No, but I would imagine, that Toledo did not shoot well whatsoever.
No.
24% from three. That was a little uncharacteristic based on the way they performed the previous 2 days. But the fact of the matter was, it started off kind of like a chess match, and then all of a sudden UC San Diego just took off.
Mm.
Tyler McGee hit 7 threes in the game.
He can
You
really shoot
had
it.
Yeah, and he had a couple games like that. He went big. He had a career high 27 in the opener against LaSalle. He matched that in the championship game. Um, Anawanawa, Tate Jones, he's so fun to watch because
Hmm.
he doesn't blow you away. Like he came from lower ranks of college basketball earlier in his career, but what he can do, like when he gets the ball at the top of the key in 1 or 2 steps, he can just go ahead and blow right by you, right?
Hmm.
So it's crazy because for whatever reason, defenders can't keep him in front of them,
Hmm.
and so they were putting on a show all week. Hayden Gray, you can't leave him open; he'll knock it
No.
down. He's also a former Division II player, so there was just so many moving parts, and and much like Drake, they just play so well as a unit. They're
Mm.
kind of unflappable. There's these moments where you thought maybe they would go away in both the James Madison game and the LaSalle game, and they never stopped fighting. They never stopped scoring. So very efficient, very together, awesome long-term projection. And I think the key here, Sean, is this is their first year eligible for the NCAA tournament.
Yep.
So
I think they could get there. I mean, the Big West is obviously stacked, but like when you're as well coached as they are, as many offensive weapons as they have, I mean, beating UC Irvine is never going to be easy. Santa Barbara took a tough loss at home this week to UTEP. I mean, the way that Devon Barnes and Ahmad Bynum shot the ball, they were probably just going to lose that game. They were just getting outshot from outside. But UC Davis, they had their really solid, impressive game against Washington. There's just so much depth in this Big West this year.
yeah, no, I agree. I think the Big West in general is just so loaded. If your name starts with UC, you're off to a great start. UC Riverside bank shot up from half
Hmm.
court
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
eventually
I
beat
didn't even mention
Colorado
it.
State. Yeah,
Yeah.
UC Davis goes to Grand Canyon. It's
Mm.
like UC Irvine undefeated, UC Santa Barbara, some good performances, still figuring it out there a little bit, but those five are all terrific. Plus there's Cal Poly, plus there's Northridge. There's so much going on in the Big West competitively. Hawaii is going to be tough as well.
All right, that was our mid-major talk for the week, and now before we head out, obviously, we have to do our interview here with Ben McCollum, the Drake head coach. Big week for him, and he talks to us about everything to know about this Drake team, their impressive run in Charleston, and what to expect from them moving forward. So for this part of the episode, it's Sean Paul and Rocco Miller signing off with you. All right, here for another interview on the Field of 68 mid-major show. Sean Paul and Rocco Miller, joined by the hottest head coach in the mid-major level right now, Drake head coach Ben McCollum. Coach, how you doing? Your hotel down in Charleston?
Man, I'm great. Doing well. Doing well.
Rocco, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Coach, glad to be on with you. I've been working with your staff and you to an extent on scheduling coming into the year, and I know the hot topic right now is Drake making the finals, playing tonight against Vanderbilt after two big wins over Miami and Florida Atlantic. But you guys were the eighth and final team in this field, and it was not the easiest decision to decide to play in it. And maybe just talk a little bit about why you decided to play in it and how you approached it coming in.
Yeah, I think, coming in your first season, you really don't totally know what to expect from a scheduling standpoint. And my understanding was when I asked a lot of people, you don't get invited to this event every year. So when you get invited, you probably should accept the invitation so that you can continue to get invited to these types of tournaments. And I certainly think it does put Drake on the map. And just being on ESPN and playing the competition that we have. So I wouldn't say that originally I was in love with the, the schedule, but it is what it is, and you can't totally overthink it. You just got to go play it, and our kids have done that at this point.
Well, why weren't you in love with it though? What about it was kind of different? Because I'm not sure what the D2, if there's MTEs at the D2 level like that, but like what didn't you love about it initially?
Yeah, so you come in as a first-year head coach, you want to create a level of confidence with your team, and obviously playing Miami and then Florida Atlantic and now Vanderbilt sometimes doesn't exactly create a level of
Hmm.
confidence.
That's true.
And we started the season off with SFA, who's really well coached, and then
Hmm.
see Florida Gulf Coast, who's a lot better than their record is.
Oh yeah.
And so we had a difficult schedule already. At Division II, we always had one of the most difficult schedules there were. The difference is like in Division II, there's still that high major, mid major, low major Division IIs, where you have the haves and the have-nots. We would be considered as a higher level Division II, where we had a big campus, good resources, et cetera, et cetera. So, you just play naturally the best schedule you can possibly play to make a regional. Whereas at this level, you have to be a little bit more careful as to who you play, to where you balance really tough competition with, essentially quad fours, as they would call them. And, this counted as a few of our quad ones.
Hey, Coach. Yeah, with bringing over Jackson, Sturts, Mascari, and Abreu, who have just been probably your four most important players in terms of production in this tournament, at least. Um, if in a world where you all stayed at Northwest Missouri State, would that team have been good enough to go undefeated this year?
Yeah, I don't know. We had the same team last year essentially, and we
Yeah.
lost the player of the year in the league. I don't know. It's hard to tell just because we've had a lot of good teams and we've had a lot of good players, and it kind of depends on what everybody else has too. But Division II is a little bit different. The coaches are very innovative because they have to be.
Hmm.
You don't really necessarily pick your players. You do to a certain level, but once a Division I comes in and offers them, then you lose them. And so you have to consistently change how you're going to coach your team, and then how you're going to run offense, how you're going to run defense, et cetera, based on your personnel. So the coaching at that level is, from a scheme standpoint, is a lot different. And so you can drop a few of those games throughout the year.
I think the biggest story for your team throughout this run in the Charleston Classic has been the play of Bennett Sturts. He's been fantastic, averaging 18 points per game, averaging more points per game this year than he did for you guys last year at the D2 level. What makes him such a special player for you guys?
I mean, he's elitely smart. You know, it's his first thing. He doesn't force action. I think the big thing is too is we finally figured out how to use him after 2 years. You know, he had two really good seasons at Northwest, but as you coach somebody for, because we used to have ball in hand, like really heavy ball in hand guards, and he can play that way. He's probably better doing both, you know, where he can move around a little bit, but yet he can also have the ball in his hands quite a bit. And so just figuring out how to use him the right way within the system. And I think that's probably where you're seeing him shine, just because we're using him a lot better, I guess.
Yeah, your team right now is, it's early in the data, so we can't get too carried away. But the ability to get to the foul line, I think 28 foul shots against Miami, 25 against FAU. You're coming in at a 53% of your possession rate of being able, that free throw to field goal ratio, seventh best in the country. Also defensively, your ability to just create a bunch of mistakes, both turnover percentage and what I call unforced error percentage, which it's that non-steal turnover metric. Obviously, really high marks early on, great sign for the future. Is there something about the pedigree of the personnel you have or the style you prefer to play in general, that's leading to some of these early signs as like a national leader in these categories?
Yeah, good question. I think from an offensive perspective, we've always been pretty efficient.
Yeah.
I think we've led the country in efficiency for quite a few years at the Division II level. And so points per possession have always been a big thing. And, role definition, understanding, hey, when somebody drives to the basket, where do you move? How do you relocate, et cetera, et cetera? How do you make the extra pass? And understanding that it's our shot, not your shot. And so our guys have an understanding of that. They want to have the best shot regardless of whose day it is. One day Mitch may go 0 for 2 and not even shoot the ball. And then the next day he might have 20. And Daniel, Cam, all the guys, it's just they don't really care. And so there's a level of humility that allows for those free throws. It is officiated a little bit different at this level. It's not it's more physical only because the athletes are more physical, but the officials call more fouls essentially. And so you really, when you attack the basket, you have to make sure that there's not as much contact. And we're able to get some of that contact when we attack the basket because we don't settle for a 15-foot jumper. And so, you're able to get to the free throw line. As far as our defense goes, it's just our defense. It's just we try to be physical defensively. We try to take away your angles, get you to play east and west, et cetera. Just a normal gap defense with a lot of effort and a lot of enthusiasm. And it seems to work for us.
I mean, for a lot of years, I mean, you had so much success at the D2 level, so people for years were wondering when you would make the jump to the D1 level. So what made Drake the right job for you, and what made now the right time to take this job?
Well, you just never totally know what the right job is or right move is.
Mm.
And so, with Drake, obviously Des Moines and just Iowa, that is home. I really had a good relationship with the athletic director, Brian Harden, and I think that helped quite a bit as well. Just, having a boss that'll work for you and compete for you just as much as you're going to compete for them. And then just, representing the state of Iowa with Drake is a big deal for us. So we thought that we had an opportunity to, just based on resources and Drake University, to finish first place, not have excuses. Not that we're going to finish first place, but you have the chance to do it. You don't have built-in excuses to not do it, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And anytime you take a job, I think you want to make sure that you have a job that allows you the opportunity to where there's no built-in excuses for that.
And you're not taking a
And
job that won like 3 games last year.
right.
Yeah, Coach DeVries really put and his staff really put Drake on the map. And
Hmm.
so he did have a brand name, and obviously he didn't leave a lot he only left two
No.
players for us, but But
That one was
he
all you.
did, yeah, he did. He did an awesome job of creating energy around Drake and Drake basketball, and obviously we're the beneficiaries of it with the recruiting process.
And I'd imagine, Coach, that being regionally close to Northwest maybe gave you the reassurance that you could successfully get all four of these studs to follow you to Drake. Did the regional aspect matter quite a bit as well? Just that wasn't a too big of a move for them, or do you think they would have followed you if you went to one of the coasts, for example?
They would have followed me regardless, I think.
Okay,
So
okay,
we've had
okay.
these conversations throughout, but it was more my family. I think they appreciate
Help
it.
the family. Yeah.
I know that they appreciate it being closer. I know that there was other jobs the previous year that were a lot further away. And, for me personally, I think from a family perspective, if you're making 3, $4 million, yeah, you're going to move to the East Coast, right? And because
Hmm.
you can just get a jet to go home. But if you're making good money, but not enough to just fly every 10 seconds, then you probably should stay fairly local to stick with family. And that's why we obviously stuck with local and obviously the attraction to Des Moines, Drake, and Iowa.
That's awesome. You got a big championship game with Vanderbilt tonight, and another opportunity to help your own resume, help the Valley's overall opportunity. And Sean and I are old school, two bid, three bid Valley lovers. We
Hmm.
always want that pipe dream to go along. So right now, with the 2 wins you've already got in this tournament, it's another big opportunity. I'm also very high on Vanderbilt. You guys are both undefeated. Byington's doing a great job. I thought he did an awesome job in the portal. They're doing some of the things well that you guys are very good at taking away. So I like the matchup on paper. But what are your big keys for tonight's game, and what's going to allow Drake to win this championship tonight?
Yeah, I think just a lot of energy to start the game. I think that the game we didn't come out like I liked us to. We were able to hit enough shots to win the game. I didn't think we played our best basketball though. I think if you do that tonight, it's going to be an issue because they're very physical. They play extremely hard. They'll get after you defensively. They get up and down the floor. They attack the paint. They're athletic. They're well coached. I mean, they're a really good basketball team, and he's done it very, very quickly. Obviously, the guard from Michigan State helps a lot.
Hmm.
He's
Yeah. Yep.
he's different, and not from a scoring perspective. Obviously, he scores enough, but he's one of the better passers that we've seen. He's an elite passer, can read ball screens, can get downhill and read situations, and he is a power five plus athlete or power four, whatever you want to call it. I mean, he's a NBA type athlete. So we'll have our hands full.
So, final question here before we let you go. Looking more big picture, for you guys to win the Valley, for you guys to finish top three in the Valley, what does it take? Because this is a really good conference still. You have Bradley, you have Northern Iowa, you have Murray State, you have Illinois State who pulled off a really big win over the weekend. What does it take for you guys to be that top team in the Missouri Valley this year?
Just keep improving the way we are. Nothing, it's coach speak, but there's nothing that earth shattering that's going to create that for us. I think it's just, can we get better every day? Can we develop the habits to be ready for every single game? The team that wins the regular season conference championship, obviously everybody wants to win the tourney championship, but the regular season one, I've always felt like is the most difficult
Hmm.
because it comes over time. You have to face, whether it be injuries or whatever, and you just have to teach yourself to be ready every single night, and hopefully through practices, through our preseason conditioning, through all these games, we're developing that habit of being ready, being consistent, being tough, and being a tough team to beat.
Thanks again to Drake head coach Ben McCollum for joining us, and we'll be back.